That's cool. People view fear as an obstacle that needs to be overcome. But some people, the majority of people, try to avoid the fear that they are scared of and try not to like be near the fear and try to avoid it. Our exclusivity as government team is that we are able to have fear as a major emotion, and the majority of people in our world can overcome from their fears and improve as a person in general. And Judge, people try to avoid things that they're scared of because most people are not good at withstanding or good with what they're scared of. So they try to not embarrass themselves or just like be near what they are scared afraid for themselves. Now move on to first argument for government team. And our team's claim is that fear pressures us into doing good things. And with pressure, we try to lock in and get stuff done. And unlike other emotions such as anger, sadness, or any other negative emotions which control your actions to and influences you to be irrational, fear doesn't do that, as fear is the natural part of us that our ancestors also had living with them, and this fear uh, incentivizes us to do good, and we when we're scared of something, we don't want to embarrass ourselves or like be scared. I don't make mistakes. We don't try to make mistakes. So fear tries us to focus and not we believe that fear pressure us into doing into good things. And why it's true is because like people have
Sorry,
be seen.
I'm so sorry. I'm pausing your time. You're cutting off for me. Is it just me or is it everyone? It's everyone. All right. I'm so sorry. First speaker, can you hear me?
George, I think two of our teammates got kicked, or I don't know
All
what
right.
happened.
No problem. Then they have time to reconnect. That is totally okay. Let me just.
Wait, Aiden, did you reconnect?
Yeah,
Oh yeah, we just reconnected.
All
Okay.
right. Perfect.
I think our internet is horrible.
I think
our internet is horrible.
Yeah. Our
Internet is
internet is. We are frozen. We are frozen.
Yeah, they have a lot of high end lag. Yeah, they have a lot of high end lag. Um, okay, can you just use my
So, so wait, wait, wait. Do I go where I left off?
Didn't make the sound go down.
Oh, wait.
Hello?
Wait, is the volume on? Okay. Okay, I'll just go back from where it started. Okay. So back to my speech, and each time we are under fear we get more experience and we improve. So the impact is that people on our world is that we're like in our world people don't see fear as an obstacle or a flaw, and whenever they are in like under that state of fear they try to focus and mostly try hard on things that they know that they're not good at. But people in opposition world is that people always try to avoid their fears and think it is okay because everyone views fear as a flaw, and they don't try to overcome the fear and just become a better person in general. And second argument, a claim is that suppressing fear is ineffective because why is this true? Because when we attempt to overcome fear, we just try to take action without planning. Because if we are confident we did something right, we don't have we plan ourselves ahead and try to make everything cut, and we're not stressed because we know we're good at this and we're confident. And but whenever we're under fear, we're pressured. So because of this, if we try to suppress fear, we're just effectively saying that we can do something without actually trying. And if we fear the outcome, we fear the outcome, but not the process of the situation. So therefore, as we try to suppress fear, we are just denying our responsibilities to incentivize for change. And the impact is that if we don't try, then we just like mess up, and we get stressed as as a result is as and this result is obviously undesirable. However, in our world, we are able to change because we try to we try to go up against fear, and while opposition's world, they try not to. So that's the clear difference. In our world, people try to improve from their fears, while opposition world, they don't and try to avoid it, and because they view it as a fear. Therefore, I'm proud to propose.
But this debate is not about if fear is a flaw or not, but if the narrative itself is a benefit to the society. This narrative is shown in many cases, like popular media, where fear is often portrayed as a flaw or obstacle. Our team strongly believes that this narrative is essential to the society. In our side of the road, which is the status quo, people build resilience and bravery. And when fear is portrayed as an obstacle, it challenges people to overcome and withstand their emotion. We believe that this is beneficial to the society. And on the other hand, in the other side hypothetical world, they claim that fear is like a natural emotion and it builds bravery. But we believe that this natural emotion that was built for people was the it was built for people to withstand and level up and contribute to the society even more. And our stance for this debate for our side today is simple: that the narrative that fear is a flaw is good, therefore it needs to be supported. Now, moving straight to our team's rebuttals. So, the opposing team's first speaker mentioned that fear pressures us to do good things. However, we believe that this is quite the opposite, for it actually encourages people to stay inside like boxes, which I'm going to explain later. And also, note that the many impacts were mentioned by the Prime Minister, but the mechanism was not shown well and was very vague. And note that if this argument wants to stand, the mechanism needs to be added. And second of all, they also said that it also builds confidence. But however, we believe that this is not true, for it actually discourages confidence. Let me explain this later on. Now, let me move straight to our team's first argument on how fear can reduce opportunities. So, the premise of this argument is that in order to succeed, people need to take risks. And we believe that nothing can be accomplished if we stay inside like the box. And we believe that risks help us challenge and overcome. And if fear acts as a barrier to make people stay inside their boxes, it may destroy the very opportunity for people to be successful. Some mechanism. So why is this likely to happen? So judge, if fear becomes portrayed as a natural emotion and this narrative gets like opposed, like the other team is claiming, it will cause people to show fear numerous times, right? And this act can we believe that this act can lead to the brain thinking that like staying inside the box is positive. And this can lead people to take risks. This can lead to people to take risks. And so, for instance, if Elon Musk did not take these very risks, will he be able to succeed? No, right? So we believe that this opposing this narrative does not help build confidence and build and increase opportunities. Rather, it reduces it. Now, moving straight to our team's second argument on how it builds confidence within people. Mechanism. So we believe as the premise. So confidence. We believe that confidence is a positive factor in society because it encourages people to think of new ideas and innovate. And we believe that without confidence, the world wouldn't be like this. It wouldn't be like this good status quo right now because less innovation and less invention would have happened. So mechanism. So why is this a likely scenario? We believe because like if this narrative is portrayed as a positive is like portrayed as positive, then people will like try to suppress these like fear, right? And this can lead to people like eventually learning to suppress fear and learning to suppress fear. And what is the opposite of fear? It's bravery and confidence, right? We believe that suppressing fear can help grow bravery. So the impact of this argument is that it can lead to innovation and the act of standing out and lead to new ideas. And we believe that these factors help shape the good status quo right now, and therefore there is no need to oppose this right now and suppress these good factors. So in conclusion, I have presented two arguments and are set up for today. We believe that the argument mentioned by the Prime Minister is actually very not true, and the mechanism mentioned by the Prime Minister was very vague, but our arguments were not. So for these reasons, I'm more than proud to.
First, I would like to rebut to the opposition, then move on to the third argument and move on to the comparatives. So first, opposition stated that fear pressures us to fear just basically limits like how brave we are and like how confident we are in ourselves. However, we believe that suppressing fear is not actually just creating bravery, it's just not acknowledging like the flaws that we have created along the way, and that we're just trying to create an excuse for not doing like not actually trying to prep or like just trying to just get things done overall. So when we try to suppress fear, this just causes us to not acknowledge the flaws that we have made along the way, and that we also believe that, yeah, sure, although fear could be suppressed to give confidence, we believe that if we just completely suppress fear, we wouldn't have any incentive to actually work and try to get a good outcome. And we also like to point out that we never stated that fear creates confidence. So they're also strawmanning. So we and also uh they also say that fear causes us not to attempt good things because we are like, I don't know, overwhelmed. But then this is just not true, because if we are stressed and under pressure, then we will be very incentivized to actually take action, because we don't want that outcome to happen. So since we don't want that outcome to happen, then we'll actually try to take action to like prevent that from happening. And for that to happen, fear is needed and not other emotions such as like anger or sadness, as we'll prove in our third argument. So moving on to the third argument, fear itself is an emotion that causes fear and does not incentivize to take other actions, such as like taking creating irrational decisions due to emotions such as anger or like sadness. So this is because like if you're angry, we will be also incentivized to take irrational decisions, such as like throwing a water bottle. And although it does still give us stress, which incentivizes us to take actual action, it still creates like side actions which we do not really need, and also just doesn't benefit the general outcome itself. So if we want to take action, then we need a stress to get better results, which was stated in the PM speech. And with these other excess effects that comes with other emotions, when fear is suppressed, we make unreasonable decisions. So this causes us to be unfavorable, as although these emotions give us stress, it also causes to create negative results. So however, with fear, it just causes us stress, therefore we don't make irrational decisions. So if emotions other emotions like cause us stress, and if other emotions cause stress and they're ineffective on incentivizing us to create decisions, then why should we limit fear? And moving on to the comparatives, people are suppressed with fear, and people are aware of that. So in the previous argument, uh, they stated that if they're afraid of something, then they would just not take action, and they would just try to just be suppressed. However, this only relies on the assumption that people don't fear the conclusion when they're prepping or preparing for something. So if they are really fearing the conclusion, then they take actual action, and this just and since they do take action, they'll actually have a better conclusion. So they'll be actually like more confident in themselves. So, like this just relies heavily on the fact that people aren't prepping, and they're just not like afraid of the outcome itself. And and the majority of people, they don't think of this because they actually want to get a good result. They want to have a good outcome. So therefore, I'm proud to propose.
Honorable adjudicator, the government just basically creates a world where people don't build resilience in their own body and clearly shows their fear to the public. So we believe that the narrative that fear is a flaw has a good impact on society and is very beneficial to the people. So three things you can expect from my speech. One, support, two, rebuttals, and finally our last and final argument, which is that it builds resilience for people. So moving on to my support for the leader of opposition. So the leader of opposition's first argument was that fear can reduce from this narrative. So in our world, people don't show their fear to others, but judge. Please keep in mind, we're definitely not arguing that they don't know what fear is and like they don't have fear at all, but rather they do have fear inside their own hearts, but they just don't show it to other people. So how is this beneficial on our side? So this is beneficial because as the time passes and they show less and less fear, it becomes a habit for them eventually, correct? So they don't necessarily lose their fears by 100% and they have no fear anymore, but rather we think that they reduce their fear at least a little bit, while the government side cannot achieve this at all. So on to our second argument. So our second argument was that people can start to feel
people can start to feel confident. So continuing this logic I told you in the first argument, once fear is reduced by at least a little bit, people can start to feel more and more confident in themselves. So this leads to people having more and more chances. So this leads to people having more and more chances and more opportunities. So how does this logic basically work? It works because if you're a shy person who doesn't have a high participation level, then you miss out on big opportunities that people provide to you. However, this only happens on their side because on our side, we create a world where people participate in big chances and is brave wherever they go and doesn't miss out on any opportunities. So moving on to the team's rebuttals. So in their first argument, they say that fear pressures people into doing good things, but judge they just assume that people would be pressured and even though we say that they don't assume this, there's two responses. One, they just simply just like basically assume this without giving even clear reasons why. And number two, they don't explain how people would be pressured and what causes them to. So therefore, this argument does not stand. And so our sec. And so their second argument is that it builds confidence. However, judge, they're just misunderstanding the motion now. They're supposed to be arguing that this narrative is harmful and why and that has bad impacts. However, they say that this narrative is actually good because it builds confidence, and that has nothing to do with the case they're supposed to be arguing this debate. So moving on to their last argument. So their last argument is that fear is a natural emotion, so you should like respect it like how it is. Yes, we agree that fear is a natural emotion, but we think that just because people should not be showing but we think that people should not be showing this in public since this can cause them to fall down or become negative. Overall, the government team's case is very vague and broad. They don't give clear and
Why?
clear reasons why it's out of order. So they don't give clear reasons why there is cases stand. So moving on to our final argument. So our final argument is that it builds resilience. So basically, it builds resilience by building bravery and confidence along the way. So judge, like I said, they still have fear inside them, but they just don't show it. When they don't show fear in public and they only have fear inside their heart, then they can also build resilience by like not showing their fear to other people and just keeping it to themselves. And so it shows resilience by pretending to be tough and yeah and yes, so until now, Judge, presented to you our support for the leader of opposition, rebuttals against the government side, and our team's last argument, which is that it builds resilience. So therefore I'm proud to oppose. Thank you.
I'd like to start my speech by first doing clashes, and then if I have time, world comparison. So my first clash is that is likelihood. So in our side, we bring the benefit of why people like our people can grow and become a better person overall. Because first, like as we did state and actually did have marginalization, we said that like first, because we have fear and we accept it as a natural fear, we also have the like benefit that like we can also like see like we can also accept that as it's a part of us and we can also grow from that. So we are like their side, their first two arguments, which the second argument is basically the impact of the first argument, is basically the same, like has the same, we also have the same benefit, so they're not exclusive. And the opposition said, like in their first argument, that people stay in boxes because fear doesn't build confidence. And but like they literally said that fear does, like their DLO said that fear does build confidence. So like if we think it as a flaw, you can really build upon it because judge, we think flaws are problems, and you usually deal with problems, but then you usually want to forget about the problems because problems are like usually bad experiences. But if we think of it as a valuable thing with a positive mindset, then we can actually grow from it. So and if this narrative like actually passes, then we have a better likelihood that people will have more lessons. So we win this clash on likelihood. Second, my second clash is that like which benefits society as a whole. So basically, the opposition's whole push is that people have their fear in their heart, a direct like the DLO literally said they have fear in their own hearts. So basically, this basically means that in reality, it means that it becomes a habit to hide your fear. They never fulfill their burden of like their burden is to like say why it's good to like overcome their fear, but instead they're saying it's a good thing that they hide their fear. And hiding your fear doesn't mean you become confident. Hiding your fear is means you're just like hiding your fear. You still have the fear if you're hiding your fear. So I really don't understand the
You
opposition's like
answer.
point there. No, thank you. And uh our side said that like our side said that since like we ourselves are more like important than anyone else to ourselves, then fear can like actually like help us and protect us. And this makes it more beneficial to us because we can actually like I said, like we can actually grow from these experiences and can become a better person overall. And my third and we win this clash because we over like in the end overall like support the society better as people. And my third and final clash is that like is scale. So basically we help
You
more people out of order. We help more people overall because like in our world we have these like as the narrative of that this house supposes the narrative that fear is a flaw. Since we don't think it's a flaw, we think of it as a thing that can actually help us, as said in the info slide. Since we can since it is helpful to us, like people will also think it's helpful, and because it's helpful, like I said in my first two classes, people are gonna want to like improve under fear because it's a natural thing to say like fear is bad because we all fear like fear itself. And but in their world, if it's portrayed as a flaw or obstacle, then people will like not want to grow from that fear, just want to hide it. So in their world, they're hiding it, while our world, we're actually growing from it and becoming a better person overall. And we win this clash on scale, and for these reasons, I'm very proud to propose.
So, Judge, just to clarify, this debate is not about if fear is a flaw or not. We had to prove why this this has a great benefit in the society, even if this narrative is not true. Also, Judge, the government team have many flaws. First of all, they talked about irrational decisions in their DPM speech. But just to repeat, Judge, they do not explain why this happens, which I will also elaborate later on in my speech. And all of their arguments are poorly mechanized, which I will also mention in my classes later on. And also, Judge, it seems like all their cases were mixed up. All the speakers seem to talk about a different case. And for example, the prime minister on their team talked about confidence, but then the DPM comes up and literally says that he did not mention confidence in his intro. And we believe that they're also pushing an unfair burden towards our side where we have more things to prove by them claiming that our side has all benefits while our side does not have any benefits, while their side provides everything that they claim they do, which does not stand for the reasons I will also explain later on. And they also rely on this one specific point that emotion cannot be suppressed. However, Judge, this does not stand because it's overweighed by all the benefits on our sides and harms on their world, which I will also explain in later on in clashes. So now moving on to our first clashes. We said that if society sees fear as a flaw, it will have lots of benefits. We mentioned that one of the benefits would be that these people would not show their fear in small things anymore, which is very likely to happen on our side's world, while the government's world would be the direct opposite. We said that people hiding fear will lead to them actually thinking they feel less fear. As time passes, they'll be more confident, feeling less fear and more brave. We said that this makes them take more opportunities, which leads to more innovation. However, they said that we are just assuming on one factor. However, Judge, they did not explain clearly, and we did not get the point of their rebuttal. And they also mentioned that this pressures people into doing good things. And if they're pressured, this stresses them out, which is bad. However, Judge, it was vague, poorly and no thank you, and illogical. And Judge, we believe that it does not make sense, and they fail to explain why the government explain why. And then the government did not have a direct response, so we believe we won this clash as well. So now moving on to our second clashes. Which world encourages people to be more resilient? We said that people not showing fear on the side will make them overcome many problems by themselves instead of expressing fear for every small problem and getting help from others. We believe that the government team produces soft citizens that always express fear and get help from others, while our world has strong and resilient people who can overcome and bigger problems by themselves gradually as they experience more and more fear. However,
Yuan, this is your last chance.
no, thank you, but they said that they do not suppress emotion. However, Judge, this does not stand for the reason I will explain later on. They also mentioned that fear was a neutral emotion that cannot be compressed, and they talked about how this can lead to irrational choices. However, Judge, and they said that people don't grow from fear. However, Judge, as we repeat again, we believe this does not make sense, and about their irrational choices, we believe that they misunderstood our point. We said that this can make them more resilient and confident. However, they're talking about irrational choices about anger, and we believe that this does not relate to the emotion. And Judge, for their second point, we believe that this also does not stand for the reason that our side still has more resilience, while people on their side, no matter what happens, will still not be pressured or forced. They will still be able to show their fear, which will stop them from growing. So we believe we won this clash as well. I'm proud to oppose.
Just the clashes in this debate was very clear. If fear actually builds confidence, slash, if fear creates the opportunities for people. And based on these clashes, let me compare both worlds and identify which is better. So starting off with our side of the house. So just in our side of the house, people take chances, risks, and earn opportunities. And also even in the procedures, people build resilience. And how can we prove this? Through the status quo. Like our side of the house is basically the status quo and reflected for these like narratives already exist in the status quo. And if you look at the example of Elon Musk could succeed. Why? Because he went out of the box, he took risks, and therefore, and this was all, we believe that this was all because of the narrative that exists in the status quo, which I already explained. Now, how about the hypothetical role that the opposing team claim? They claim that they build confidence and have like opportunities, and especially the prime minister in this debate like said a lot of impact if they build confidence and have opportunities. What do we want to say to this? Exactly, we believe that these impacts exist in our side too, while the other side while it doesn't exist in the other side's house. And we agree with the many impact that took most of the prime minister's speech, but we agree with the mechanism. For we believe that actually this narrative actually builds confidence and actually encourages people to go out of their house and to build opportunities. So in conclusion, I have presented both the clarifications of both sides of the house and identified the characteristics. So let me just summarize, Judge. So first of all, we mentioned a lot of arguments and straightforward arguments, such as the procedures like resilience, how it takes chances and risks and more. While the other side like claimed many arguments that contradicted the side, but did not have much mechanism and was very vague. So therefore, this argument doesn't stand. So for these reasons, I'm more than proud to uphold. 2 minutes, sorry, a second.
Indicator of why a team lost is if when all of their arguments were basically the same or just one argument extended. Or another indicator could be when they're not explaining all of their statements and explaining why that is more large scale than their opposing team and how it works for every actor. And this is every single thing that opposition team did not mention. Now, moving on, what our team proved. Our team proved that suppressing fear is ineffective, and why this works for every single person. And we also proved that when people are under fear, they're pressured, so they don't want to make mistakes. And we proved that what every single person wants, they don't want when they're under pressure, which was that they don't want to be shown as a person that's just embarrassing themselves. So DLO is saying that we are assuming for every single person that's not correct. Now, moving on to what their team did improve. Their second argument was basically the impact of the first argument of how Ella was saying that if people take the risk, the impact is that they build confidence. The second argument was basically the impact. Third argument was basically the same as second argument of how are like building resilience with for their confidence. That's basically the same as second argument. And and Elo mentioned context about the third argument in his speech before the Elo came out, and they kept pushing that people have fear in their hearts. But they try to hide it from people. They never try to prove why this is true and how this will reduce fear, the likelihood, and opposition web was just rebutting on false points. Okay, so all of that they're just explaining on false points, they're lying. And now moving on to comparing world comparison. In our world, we have vulnerability because everybody has fear. So we have the larger scale of how we're affecting every single vulnerable people because in this case everybody is vulnerable because everyone has a fear. And we have intensity as everybody uses as this method works on every actor. Now, on their world, they don't have vulnerability. As just like they said, their method was for some people to hide their fear, and this was their method. So they don't have vulnerability. So other people don't know their fear, which by the way, they didn't mention why this is the likelihood how fear would reduce. They also and therefore I'm proud to propose.